Welcome everybody. This is our second On Deck speaker series, and I'm so excited to have Ali Hand with us today. I'm Cynthia Chan. I'm the Administrative Director of the Dirt Underneath Actor Space, and I will be moderating and interviewing Ali today. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here, also on the heels of scene study class today.
Yes.
So you had a bit of a Red Bull and a walk, and
Sure.
you're ready to go?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Took a lap. We're
Good.
back.
Good. I'm really interested in your story. I first read your story in your application to our artistic residency program last year.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned that you're a disability advocate, you're a disabled actor, and that it's a passion of yours to help people with disabilities in the art industry.
Yeah.
So I'll be asking you a lot of questions about that today, if that's all right.
Of course.
The first thing I wanted to double check with you was the terminology around being disabled. I read in the disability collective where you work that it's disabled artist. And that's a bit different from what I've been trained in the past when I was doing volunteer work for the Invictus Games, where I was taught person-first terminology. So could you let me know what your preference is?
Yeah. My preference personally is identity first, which is disabled artist, disabled person. As opposed to the person with a disability, person first language. It is pretty standard. It's kind of a corporate thing.
Being person first is corporate?
It feels like that's what is taught. I think, no shade to you or whoever taught you that, I think it's often taught by non-disabled people.
Right.
They're like, yeah, that's what they prefer. And it is super, everyone has their own preference. And you kind of just ask and see what people prefer. I'm totally fine with people that prefer person first. I just prefer identity first, as do my colleagues at the Disability Collective. It's kind of a movement in the community right now that we don't want to shy away from the word disabled. We don't want it to be like, I'm a person, I'm not a disabled person, right? It's not a bad word. That's kind of what we push.
Okay. And I understand from your story that part of your journey in the last 3 years is really embracing your disability in your acting career as well. So we'll get to that. I guess why don't we start with, can you tell me about your disability?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, baby Ali. I was diagnosed basically when I was born, because when I was born and when I was young, my eyes went in different directions. Like I looked very blind.
Okay.
And so they weren't sure what that was. I got diagnosed with ocular albinism, which is albinism as we kind of know it, being albino. And then my brother actually later, who is older than me, also got diagnosed with albinism, but it didn't affect his eyes. So most people who have albinism, it does affect their eyes because it's the pigmentation in your whole body. So it's the pigmentation in my optic nerve and my eyeball. So the way that your eyes communicate with your brain is affected by that. So it can't be corrected with any sort of lens or LASIK or anything like that. It's just the way it is. So that's just kind of how I grew up. And then when I was a teenager, I decided, I don't know, just because kids are mean, that I didn't want to look so blind, which is now looking back and being an advocate and being more proud of being disabled is sad that I felt that way as like a teen, that I wanted to look quote unquote like more normal, but that's what I did. So I had like more of a cosmetic surgery to at least align my eyes.
Okay.
So that now it looks a bit more normal and they still shake. But yeah, that's what I did. I knew that I wanted to be an actor, and I was like, people are not going to want to look at my eyes being so strange, or like people saying like, oh, who are you looking at? Right? Who are you talking to? When my eyes couldn't focus on people. So I was like, I can't be an actor if I look like this. And so I had those cosmetic correcting surgeries.
And they went well?
For the most part. So
Okay.
they don't actually help. They didn't help my vision at all. There was like the risk of double vision from those surgeries, which actually happened. So I have double vision now too.
Okay.
Which is fine. You just learn to live with it like anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how long ago did you have those 2 surgeries, and where were you at in your acting career when you decided to go for that?
I was like 16. So
Okay.
it was right when we were kind of talking about applying to schools and actually pursuing acting as a career. So looking into like auditions, and that's when I was more strictly in musical theater. That was my dream. That's what I initially went to school for. And so I had singing teachers and people kind of subtly say, yeah, if you want to work, I think you should probably do this. So, yeah.
Do you regret it at all?
No.
Okay.
At the time, it was like a lifesaver. I was like over the moon just to be able to blend.
Okay.
Like being a teenager is hard enough.
So, can you tell me about how leaning into being a disabled actor has affected your career? At what point did you decide to let people know that that's actually part of you? And
Yeah. When I went to school, and it is also the way I was raised, that my parents just kind of taught me to be like fiercely independent, and we're always like, there's nothing you can't do because of your disability, which I appreciate, but it also kind of taught me to hide it, taught me to just kind of be like, I'm fine, I can do it myself.
right, like put your head down and just
Exactly.
go for it. Okay.
Yeah. Which is a trait that I am like proud of now, still to this day, but I wish I had been more confident in just being like, yeah, this is who I am. This is a part of me and not something that I want to hide. So all through theater school, I just didn't talk about it, didn't tell anyone. And there would be like occasional exercises where it'd be like, okay, make eye contact with someone across the room. I was like, I'm gonna sit out.
Right.
And like the teachers kind of knew, but I just honestly got by. And then same thing when I started my career. And then slowly I just got frustrated when you're like, this is hard enough. Like being an artist is so challenging that like I would go to dance calls for a musical and be like, if you're learning the choreography and then the choreographer says, okay, switch lines, go to the back. I was like, I already can't follow along from the front. Now you want me to stand in the back. So I was like, if people could just understand that that's like such a simple accommodation that I need, it doesn't affect anyone else. It just, if people just knew, then that would be fine. And that's kind of when it just started to get to me. Where I was like, I wish people just knew, and I wish it was just okay for me to talk about. And that was such a hurdle for me to get over. And I had a few like bad experiences asking people in the theater industry, like, do you think I can talk about this? Do you think I can like voice this in auditions and ask for large print and ask to stay at the front of the room, like just so I can at least have a level playing field, like to have that like equitable experience. And a few people were like, you can't say that. You will never get hired if you tell people that. And so that was like extremely discouraging and just kind of set me back like so far.
I can imagine that's so deflating.
Yeah. Where I was like, okay, you're someone that preaches inclusion and preaches all of these things, how art is like representative of humanity and of everything except me, I guess. Like that's not allowed.
Right.
So it was discouraging.
So was it like mentors in your field or instructors that were discouraging you from asking for accommodation and talking about it?
Certainly not mentors. Not anyone that I would consider a mentor, especially now. More like industry leaders, like folks that I would have wanted to work with that now I no longer want to work with. I guess. Yeah, teachers a bit. But it is just kind of like that's what I always thought. Like if people knew, then maybe I won't get hired. Because people just hear disability and think like $signs. Like that's expensive, that's gonna take more time. We don't have time in theater to give you extra time. And I was always like, I don't need extra time. Like I'm very competent, I'm very capable, but people don't take the time to listen. So.
Oh, it's interesting that that was their default. Like,
Yeah.
because it's such a starved art form for resources.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's too bad. Like they can't band together and be creative and even just listen, which is ironic because it's theater, to listen to the few things that you would need to make your life just slightly easier.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't cost any more to put you in the front row or to make the script a bigger font.
Exactly.
Okay.
And now as like an advocate and doing consulting work in theater and for accessibility, that's so often what I just try to reiterate to people and say, like, it's not going to cost you any extra money, rarely. Like,
Wow.
if you just ask the question of what people actually need, they'll tell you and they'll help you. Like, you just need to open the line of communication and make people feel comfortable.
Right.
But
So I'm really curious about what accommodation looks like in theater versus accommodation in film and television, because you did say in your application for the ARP that you were finding that film and television was more accommodating than theater. So like what's the difference? Like what do you need to get the best performance or audition in both realms?
I mean, when I started in film and TV, I was just shocked at how much more, I mean, there's just more money, to be honest. And how they just prioritize like actual holistic inclusion more. And it's still hit and miss compared to theater. But it's really similar for both. Like the second that you just feel comfortable knowing that people know about your disability and know what you need, that you can ask for those like subtle adjustments, right? Like I was doing Mamma Mia last summer and someone was like, oh, you're not doing like the set change, like getting there quite in time. I was like, I don't think I have a spike. And they were like, no, you do. Like a little
the mark
tape
on
mark.
Okay.
And they were like, no, you do. And I was like, okay, let's just like take a second.
Right.
Let me find my spike. Can we maybe make that like tactile so I can feel it with my foot, or make it glow, or make it like other things? But I was also like, now that I know spatially where it is, like I learned spatially, I know where it is. So I can figure it out. But the director I was working with knows me and knows like I don't have to explain myself in that moment to be like, well, actually I have low vision and I can't really see, so I kind of need this and this. It's just like known. And that was like the nicest experience. And same with some of my first experiences on set. They were just like, okay, you can have like 2 minutes before we start just to like learn the room.
Right.
Learn the stairs, learn the railings, everything, so that like I have an idea of what I'm walking into. And that's kind of all I need.
Right. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain to me about low vision versus being legally blind?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a spectrum. All disabilities are on a spectrum. Like no one who's not no one, but it's a spectrum. So most folks that are blind have remaining vision.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just kind of low vision all the way to blind, but it's any form of visual impairment that's not correctable.
So low vision is the same as legally blind right now for you?
Again, it's a spectrum. Like it's literally, the term legally blind is like a number, like 20/200 vision.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So everyone's different.
Do you anticipate that your vision will stay the same as you get older, or will it deteriorate a little bit with age-related changes?
They anticipate that it will stay the same.
Yeah? Okay.
So, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question about how you are auditioning and the roles that you want to play in theater and film and television. How are you manifesting that? Like because we should go back.
Sure.
Because I realized that I know a lot more about you than our audience.
Yeah.
Because we chatted before and
Yeah.
I read your essay. So I think I'm missing an important part of when you started to not want to hide.
Yeah.
So can we kind of go back to there? I'm really curious, like, was it like one moment where you decided, you know what, I'm tired of this? Like what shifted where you were inspired to not hide your disability anymore?
Honestly, I think I kind of just grew up and realized, like, if people think like that, then I don't want to work with them.
Right.
Like, well, when you're 18 and you've just graduated theater school, you're just so desperate to please everyone. And it's just not, it doesn't make good art. Like, if we're all just the same and trying to make each other happy and not saying what we actually feel or think, like, it's just so boring. So I just kind of got like spiteful and stubborn to a certain point where, like, the people that did say those things to me, I was like, great, I won't work with you then. Like,
Right.
I'm not really interested in having to change who I am anymore. So I kind of just got frustrated and started looking more for the people that encouraged me to be myself. And it was so exciting when I found those people. And that's when I went back to school. That's kind of when the pandemic hit. So I was at a loss for, like, where to even start that journey. And so randomly I went to school to study American Sign Language. I studied deaf culture. And then I studied access and inclusion at Toronto Met. So that's kind of how I got my, like, start in more the advocacy side of things, which gave me more confidence as an artist to speak for myself.
So you were meeting more people who were disabled artists.
Yeah.
So I can see, like, this is a positive feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
Like, you start to voice your needs. Someone says, sure, okay. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're like, I want to work with these people. I want to work with people who support me, who are listening to me. Okay.
Who are like-minded, yeah.
Right.
It was honestly really wild the way it happened. I one day decided I was going to post on Instagram a, like, video, a little, like, boomerang video of my eyes shaking.
Okay.
And I was just like, here's my condition, here's who I am, there you go. And that was, like, such a big leap for me, because that's so many of my, not my friends know, but so many colleagues and acquaintances, all of these people that you have on Instagram, I was like, they probably have no idea. And they probably just think that I ignore them when I see them in the street, because I don't actually see them. Like,
Right.
Which, it's just, again, like, I just wanted people to know. I wanted people to understand. And so I made this post on Instagram, and
When was that?
it was during the pandemic.
Okay.
Sometime.
It's all
a blur.
blurs.
I know. So I made that post, and then one of my mentors shared it. And then a producer saw it, and then, yeah, that producer ended up being an executive producer on C on Apple TV. And then I worked on C, and then they recommended me for 3 Points. So it was honestly, like, pretty quick, of, like, a very tangible, if I just am authentic, there you go.
It's a great lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
So can you give me the example recently of how you advocated for yourself? I guess you gave the example of the spike, but can you give me another example where you may have not asked, like, 5 years ago, and now you don't even think twice? And
yeah, it's still hard. I'm still kind of bad at it, honestly. And I'll tell, like, my mom about something that happens, and she's like, how did you not speak up? Like, you teach people to speak up for themselves now. I'm like, yeah, it's still a challenge. But even, like, my first class here with Sean, he put, like, a running order up on the TV, and he was like, okay, does this look good to everyone? And I was like, I can't read that. I immediately was just like, I want to establish this so that you know, even though we just met, and it was really, like, a big step for me, even though it probably seemed like nothing to everyone else. That was, like, a tough thing for me to do. But since then, it's like, he's been my coach for how long now? He just knows. And it just makes life so much easier for both of us, I think.
good job, Sean. So it sounds like it's like a bit of a muscle.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, what does Allie need? How to ask that from that person, and then that person giving you what you need, and then be like, okay, good job, I asked, and good job for them for giving it to you.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't last in perpetuity. Like another situation, 2 classes later, you might have to ask something else of Sean, but it's a bit easier because he already knows.
Exactly.
So it kind of like builds.
It's faster.
Okay.
Like, I don't have to explain everything.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely gets easier and just makes things, just like even a quick reminder for my friends or for people that now they just get it so much faster.
Okay.
Yeah, even seeing, I was at a Stratford opening last week, and my friend that I was with was like describing the people on stage, because I know people in the show, but I was like, I can't actually pick them out. And she was like, it's the guy in the like hot pink pants. And I was like, okay, I can make out hot pink. So now I can follow along. And just the fact that now my friends and my colleagues and my teachers and people in the industry are so much quicker just to help. Like, people want to help. And yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like that, when I was asking you at the top about language, and you had said to me outside when we were having our casual chat, like you said, it's okay to ask, you know, I'm not too rigid about it. And I just wanted to clarify, like, sometimes people don't want to say the wrong thing, right? So can you talk a little bit more about that, like in terms of people asking for clarity or learning about just questioning and questioning with respect? Like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
It's so hard. It's really hard. And it's like, even myself as an advocate, I'm immersed in the community. Like, I run the Disability Collective. It's an organization specifically for disabled artists. And I still get in trouble.
You get in trouble?
Sure.
By saying the wrong thing?
Yeah, language is constantly evolving, and so many common phrases that we use in our everyday language is like rooted in ableism, as we learn that things are rooted in racism and sexism and anything else. Like, so many things that we have to like flag and adjust these days that like I still get in trouble. But that's why I, like, in my work and in my teaching, just try to be so patient and like open to people and just let them know that they can make mistakes and that it's okay. Like, I don't want people to be scared.
Right.
Because that's when people just put up the walls and they're like, well, I don't want to work with you if I'm just going to get in trouble. Like,
what do you get in trouble for? What, can you give me an example? Is it okay? Is it okay to ask that?
Yeah, I made an Instagram post and I used the word lame. So lame's not a good word. I got dragged. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's tough. People
what
are
word
really...
did you shift it to when you edited the post?
I don't know. I don't think I did edit it. I kind of was like, it's tough for my ego too to be like, well, I'm disabled, I can say whatever I want. Right. But it's also my professional thing. So I'm like, okay. So I just apologized and said that I'm still learning, and I left it like that because I wanted people to see that like we're all still learning. We don't have to yell at each other. Like,
right. It's evolving so quickly.
Yeah. It's hard.
I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but my mom still says Oriental.
Yeah, I know.
And I go,
please. I know.
But that's in the deep recesses in her brain. Like, that's her identity. Like, that's, you know, and I think a couple times I was like, Asian. We say we're Asian. But it's, you know, like she's in her late 70s. It's going to be a very hard switch for her.
I know. Yeah, it's tough.
Okay. That's so interesting. Okay. So tell me about like how you want the industry to see you. Like, how are you know, what do you say to your agent about like the roles you want to play? And yeah, it's really broad. I got so lucky. Being on C was just like a great experience, but then Three Pines specifically, they changed the character. When I was cast, they rewrote it to actually like represent my disability. And so then it was really... That's ideal, right?
Well, it's authentic.
It's authentic.
Yeah, which is ideal for people to actually see that on TV. And for me, it would have been cool to see as a kid. And even, I think I did like a Blue's Clues voiceover audition thing that was for a bunny that had albinism. And I was like, oh, if I had seen a bunny with albinism when I was a kid, I would have been so excited. And you just didn't see that when I was growing up. So that was kind of the second thing that I worked on, and it was just my dream was like, I just want authentic representation on TV. I've never heard the term low vision used on TV, ever.
Yeah,
I've never
neither.
seen someone with nystagmus on TV. So, and then we got that feedback, and it was really exciting. And I know, like, a lot of representation on that show was really exciting. So that was like, I don't know, it's kind of a dream come true. And now I'm like, okay, well, where do I go now? But
it's a high bar.
I know. But as much as I am happy to see more representation in auditions and things, often people don't get consultants and don't do it in a way that's great. So sometimes it can feel icky when you're like, another role where it's like, blind woman can finally see and she's crying because she's so happy. It's like, ugh, we're fine with being blind. Like, stop writing this like inspiration porn that's just, it's just not what people want to see. Like, I don't know. But then again, like, I'm like, okay, it's representation, it's still steps, so I try to be patient.
Right.
There's
There's a lot of you being patient.
Yeah. I'm so
There's
patient.
a theme here. Okay.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, so many people with disabilities just want to play roles that don't revolve around that. We just want to play roles like, and happen to be disabled at the same time. Like, there's so many more interesting stories, and that's my experience on Three Pines was so nice. It wasn't super about that. It was about like a murder. So yeah, so it's kind of rare that happens, and you see it a lot more now, which is so exciting. But yeah, I just kind of want to play cool characters and just be disabled at the same time. I mean, my other dream is using sign language, but yeah, that's more of a dream for theater, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a knowledge question, advocacy. Do people kind of rely on you because you work at the Disability Collective? So when you're on set or even here at the Dirt, like, are you the go-to? And do they say, okay, well, Allie can help us with that? And how do you feel about that role?
It's tough because 100%. And I really like what I do as an advocate and as a consultant. Like, I love it. So it's tough to have that boundary. As an actor, I'm like, you're not paying me to be a consultant. You're paying me to be an actor. Like, and it really doesn't, in my experience thus far with film and TV, it doesn't happen, which is so nice. It's really refreshing. It's more in theater. I've had auditions where they are specifically looking for folks who are blind or low vision. And I walk into the room and they're like, you're blind? Like, what is low vision? I'm like, you asked me to be here. Like, do a second
you don't want to educate
research.
them and be worried about your audition at the same time.
Exactly. I'm like, I learned my sides.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm here to do. I don't always want to be wearing both hats. Like, it's just kind of tiring.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, so yes, it does happen
Okay.
quite often. Again, like, I like what I do as a consultant and as an advocate. Like, I love it. But sometimes I do want to keep it separate.
Are there any like actors in specific roles that have really inspired you recently?
I can't think of like the most like disability representation. As much as Ginny and Georgia is like an interesting show, at least they cast Canadians and they have like disability representation. Like, I would kill to play a part like the part that Sarah plays, playing Max, and getting to use sign language, or just like they have a lot of great representation on that show.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more in theater now too, on Broadway. The Deaf West production of Spring Awakening.
Oh,
I
yes.
would die to be in something like
I think
that.
the brother in Coda was in that.
Yeah.
Okay, he's so talented.
Yeah. I would love to do something like that. But honestly, just anything that I just want to like be on stage playing a character and have it written in the program that I'm disabled so people can read it and know, and it's not part of the show, it's not part of anything. It's just like, oh, cool, you can do that.
Yeah.
And just like be an actor and be disabled, and that's fun.
I have 2 more questions for you, and then we can ask our studio audience if they have questions.
Okay.
So you mentioned musical theater,
Yeah.
and I know from our conversation before you're taking voice classes and dance classes and acting classes here. Is there one discipline that's really speaking to you right now?
It's generally been, since the pandemic, it's been acting.
Okay.
Yeah.
How come?
I'm not sure. It just feels more authentic. And I mean, the industry, the film and TV industry as a whole, like I said, just feels ahead with representation and inclusion. I don't feel that in theater really at all yet, unfortunately.
Oh, that was one of my questions because your application was from last year and you mentioned the difference. I was wondering if it had caught up at all in terms a year later, but...
Yeah, I think I feel a bit more comfortable in auditions now advocating for myself and talking about those kind of things. And it feels like more people who are on panels are more excited to talk about those things, which is great. It's something that never happened before. So that's fun. But in terms of actual representation in the industry, it's pretty sad. Yeah, so I think acting is where I feel happiest and most excited now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell me or our DIRT community that I haven't asked you about yet?
I don't know. I feel like as an actor, I've said everything, but like as a consultant, I think I just want more people to hire consultants. Like, check the language that you're using, check that you're offering accommodations before you just ask people for things. Like, there's just some easy steps that you can take, and then eventually, hopefully, we won't need consultants because there'll just be disabled people on teams that know. Yeah, so that's the dream.
Is it as simple as just reminding people to ask a disabled actor what their accommodations are?
I think that's always a great first step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Questions from the studio audience?
Never.
Do you write at all?
No. I wrote a cabaret. I wrote a one-woman show once. And I kind of drew the line there. It went really well, and then I was like, all right. Yeah.
You could write the low vision Barry.
I know, yeah.
Woman serial killer running the streets.
Sweet, I'm in. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, honestly, one of my good friends, Shayla, who is blind, she worked on Women Talking, the Sarah Polley film. It's so good, but Sarah is like constantly pushing Shayla to write. And Shayla's like, I'll write you as my sister. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Like, I don't want to write. I wear too many hats as it is, but people want to write roles for me.
Nice.
Sweet.
You're like, bring it on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Good question.
Awesome.
Anything else? Anybody else?
I was going to say, so I'm a card-carrying dyslexic, and it's a disability in some ways,
Yeah.
but it has kind of gifted me in other ways that
Yeah.
are kind of clear, and maybe even just the experience of being sort of an outsider has helped me in creative pursuits. I was wondering, is there a way you think of your disability as having empowered you? And maybe it's even something in performances you can create that a quote-unquote normal person can't. You know, like how does it actually empower you, or has it given you a perspective that you use in acting? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it makes me a really quick problem solver and a strong problem solver. And like I said, it like growing up, it made me very independent and like pretty stubborn. So I think that's benefited me. And then looking at characters with disabilities in general, and how often they're played by non-disabled people, and just learning more, like, you just don't get it if you're not disabled. And even if, as much as I don't really want to play characters with other disabilities, it's like, or even play someone that's like fully blind, I'm like, well, I know what it's like to be blind more than others. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just a different lived experience. And I also just want to take that experience to other characters and, like, I don't know, like, lived experience in general. Just bring that to a non-disabled, like a written non-disabled character. It's like a whole nother level that, I don't know, I don't think I'm making sense.
No, that makes enough sense. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Are there any characters you've played here in class that are that kind of kicked your butt? And have there been what has been something a breakthrough you made with the character maybe that you thought you couldn't do?
I've played a lot of characters here. I don't know, maybe Sean can answer. I've, like, prominently twice I played Alison Brie's character from Glow, and loved that. I guess coming in to my work here, I was kind of like, I don't know what characters I can play. Like, I don't see where I fit. So that's been like a good learning curve. I'm trying to think of characters that have kicked my butt. When I played Sandra Bullock's character, what was that movie?
The Heat?
Yeah, that was wild.
That was great.
That was stressful. Yeah, working alongside Florian, who's just like an amazing improv actor who just threw things at me like nonstop. That definitely kicked my butt. Yeah.
That's great, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else? No? I'm so grateful that you spent the time today talking to me. I've learned so much.
Thanks.
And I appreciate your patience with me.
No patience required.
Thank you so much. I think that, you've opened my eyes to your challenges, but also how it is a superpower for you. And I hope that you get more awesome work as an actor and as an artist, that from people who fully see you as your amazing, authentic self. So
Thank you.
thank you
That's
so much.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Okay.
Yay.
Thanks for watching.
Yay. Thanks. Fun.
Hey.